Let's now get back to the business level and listen to two leading experts from Citi who will share with us from both a consumer and an institutional business perspective how a client-centric approach through changing mindsets and cultures, as well as collaborating with the ecosystem, could revitalize a bank's legacy system and make it the future of the future. Welcome, Simon. Welcome, Vishal.
Thank you.
Many thanks for taking the time to speak to us. We are unfortunately running a little bit behind our schedule, so if you don't mind, I will skip the introduction of both of you because our participants have already seen your CVs in our promotion materials. I understand that you will do your presentations consecutively, and we could have our Q&A session after that. Again, before you begin, I would like to encourage all of our participants to post your questions in the Q&A box and vote for the questions that you like the most. Simon, are you going to go first?
I am. I'll kick off.
Yeah, over to you then.
Excellent. Well, look, everyone should have the presentation in front of you. And look, what we've tried to do with a broad topic like leading digital transformation is think about a couple of themes that are really relevant to the landscape in Hong Kong. And so we've picked out the growth of wealth and the now economy. And I'm going to talk a bit about the growth of wealth, and then Vishal is going to talk about the now economy. And really, we're going to talk about the landscape and then how Citi is responding to that landscape and to those opportunities that lie in front of us, and also challenges as well. And typically, you'll see a presentation like this being presented by either the consumer side or the institutional side. And what Vishal and I are going to do is put it together and present a one Citi approach to how we're really thinking about this as a franchise, both from a consumer and institutional side of our businesses coming together into a single approach. Why? Because that's a real strength that Citi brings to the market, not just in Hong Kong, but across many markets around the world. And that power of our franchise to be able to see this at a consumer level and also at an institutional level is really the opportunity that sits in front of us. And when we think about how Citi is responding to this as well, our globality is critical to this because it gives us a very strong depth of customer understanding, both across many geographies at a consumer level, but also in the diversity of the organizations that we bank globally, and how those organizations are also responding to things like the now economy and how we're partnering with them to develop our wealth strategy, both again in Hong Kong and also around the world. And when we think about digital, and when we talk about digital, we think about it on two levels. The traditional lens of digital in financial services, which is at a channel, whether it's an app or a larger screen banking experience, but also we think about it as how we are transforming the organization as a whole, how we think front to back around digital, automation, simplification, modernization of the bank. And so all parts of the organization really are part of our thinking around modernizing. And when we think about modernizing, we also put this on two different levels. One, which is the modernization of legacy. And of course, when you're an organization that's been around, as long as Citi has been around, we have legacy at different parts of the organization. And so we're modernizing the pipes and the infrastructure. But two, it's about reimagining the experience, reimagining it in a very digitally native way. We describe it as no instructions needed. It is exactly the same way as you take your Apple phone out of the box and it works. And so there's a mixture of modernization and there's a mixture of reimagination that comes into this strategy. And all of this that I've talked about is underpinned by a couple of things. One is IP. IP that we've literally taken from many years serving clients at the consumer and institutional side of our businesses. And secondly, it's about culture and the culture that we've built in terms of our heritage, serving clients, but also the culture in our organization to collaborate and to bring solutions to our clients and with our clients that continue to lead in markets like Hong Kong and around the world. And so if you go to the next slide, what we're going to do is shape this on these two levels. One, the wealth side, and two, we're going to talk about the now economy. And again, if you go to the next slide, in terms of level setting, when we talk about wealth and the growth of wealth, particularly in Asia, really we look at this into the scale of wealth growth that we see in Asia. And really Asia, there's no disputing, is now the wealth capital of the world. And, you know, as of 2019, 42 trillion in onshore wealth in Asia, faster than any other region in the world, and set to grow at more than 6% over the next 5 years. And Hong Kong is at the center of that. You know, it's contributing around $2 trillion in onshore wealth. And so Hong Kong becomes a really important part for Citi, but also the Asia economy to grow wealth. And again, if you go to the next slide, just a bit more of a scene set, you know, the fastest growing segment when we talk about wealth is the $10 million plus affluent segment. It's the segment that's growing, double-digit growth, 11% over the next 5 years. It's set to grow. And when we look at that growth and we think about it from a Hong Kong perspective, whilst China leads in terms of what we'll call the onshore wealth growth, Hong Kong and Singapore are the fastest growing offshore markets in terms of wealth growth. And again, are set to grow by 5% over the next 5 years. And so Hong Kong is now up there. I mean, apart from Switzerland, Hong Kong is second with $1.9 trillion of growth. And so, you know, for us, when we think about it, you know, Hong Kong is the number one market in Asia for cross-border private wealth management and for hedge funds, number 2 in Asia for private equity. It's the largest center for arranging Asian international bond issuance. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's up there again with Singapore in terms of, you know, the FX center. So all of this really means that there is a massive opportunity here in Hong Kong, but it also means there is a significant amount of competition. You know, 78 out of the top 100 banks have a presence in Hong Kong. So whilst we see the opportunity in terms of the wealth growth here in Hong Kong, so do other banks. And so for us, it's actually about how we are setting ourselves up now to really go after the opportunity that you see in front of you. If you go to the next slide, please. And so when we look at this, I think the first thing to say is how we've organized ourselves is making sure that we don't lose sight of the client and what our clients are looking for. And it's fair to say that there is a we call it an escalator from emerging affluence right up to ultra high net worth affluence within Hong Kong. And so as we start to look at building solutions, we need to think of this with the clients at the center of it. And what I mean by that is we need to develop a digitally led transformation that starts at both ends of those spectrums, whether that's the emerging affluent at the bottom and the ultra high net worth at the top. But we also need to think about the lens of how we serve clients better every day and how we put tools in front of our relationship managers and specialists that are real-time, insightful, and can help our people, help our clients grow their wealth. And that's really what it's about for us. It's about having solutions on one side that work for our clients. They can be DIY or digi-assisted, and I'll talk about what digi-assisted means shortly. And on the other side, they're tools that we can put in front of our people that mean that the impact they can add real time, every day, is different to where we were before. And the use of data and the use of real-time digital capabilities will enable that. And again, as we think about making sure these are digitally native, there is no digital and analog anymore. Really, this whole thing comes together under what we call a digi-assisted capability. And what that means is that a client may start in a digital channel, or they may start in a conversation with a relationship manager. They may be involved in digital at various parts of that process, whether that's uploading documents, authorizing a transaction. For us now, it's about saying, how does digital and digitization and automation and simplification play a big part in this as we build this capability out, not just in our ecosystem, but in the client's ecosystem as well. And that means that it's not just developing solutions that sit in our digital and mobile capabilities, they sit where the clients are, whether that's in social platforms or also partnerships. A great example would be AA Stocks, where you can now literally buy shares as a Citi customer in the AA Stocks website, or you can buy it in our website as well. You know, it's really saying, how do we put our capabilities where the client is to remove friction and increase the convenience of these solutions and the real-time nature of when clients need them. And as I mentioned at the start, really, this is all underpinned and enveloped around what we call client obsession here at Citi. And client obsession really is about how we think and put the client at the heart of everything we do, getting the basics right. You know, at the end of the day, it's about being as easy and convenient for the client as we can. It's also about having experiences that are deeply personalized and they build on the relationship. So the interaction we have now learns from the last one and sets up the next one. And it's also about then our people taking ownership and accountability for delivering that. And then, as I mentioned before, this strategy is led by Citi, but also brought to life through our partnerships. And I'll talk a bit about how we're working at the consumer level, but also at the institutional level amongst many of our partners to now think about how they play a part in this transformation that we're driving. If we go to the next slide, please. And as we think about digital and we look at this sort of pyramid, you can see as the pyramid goes up from Citi Plus, which is this digital-only solution that we've launched into the market recently, 100% digital, serving our clients from I guess, an investments and a lending perspective, all the way up to our Citi Private Bank offering, which is very tailored and very high touch. You can see that as you go up that pyramid, the level of digitization, or the level of digital as a channel changes. You know, at the bottom of it with Citi Plus, it's 100% digital. The needs of our clients mean that we can service them digitally in all of their needs and transactions. And as those needs and behaviors and transactions and complexities of their, I guess, life stage and affluence change, then we bring more of our people and relationship management into this, right up to the top where we have our private banking clients. And digital is still important in here. And I mentioned before that notion of digi-assisted, how we can have conversation with our clients when they're on the go, whether that is remote face-to-face, whether that is through online messaging, almost, you know, chat-like in our applications, but also in social media applications as well. Being able to upload documents, authorize transactions is as relevant in the Citi Plus bucket as it is in the private bank bucket. And so for us, as we start to move this strategy forward, it really is the impact of two screens that make a big difference to us. The screen that our clients see, as I mentioned before, how we can make that impactful and our clients can do everything they need to do at the touch of a button. Ideally in as limited amount as clicks as it takes to do it, and it's all straight through. There is no manual intervention, it doesn't touch through people, it's straight through real time, and it's easy for the client. And then the second screen is the impact that our relationship managers can have by seeing that client's portfolio in front of them. Whether the client is on the go or the RM is on the go, they can have that single view of what that client relationship looks like, and they can interact and intervene and have those conversations with the client. Now, they can do that in an analog world through remote face-to-face, but they can also do it in the app as well. We're enabling the capability that if a client is in the mobile application, we'll let the relationship manager know, and the relationship manager can literally pop into the app and talk to the client real time. So this ability now to fuse together what we would call the offline and the online really is more about building a digi-assisted strategy as we move forward. If we go to the next slide, please. And enveloping all of this, as I said before, is this notion of client obsession. It is all about being real-time, simple, convenient, but it's also about being personalized and helping our clients maximize their money. And so for us, it is about taking the heritage of what we are as an organization and really moving it forward to think about taking all of that experience that we have and now thinking about it and reimagining it for the future. It doesn't change, it's still relationship driven, but the way we bring that relationships to our clients virtually as well as physically is the thing that's going to change. And we've been modernizing and driving at a digital level to now enable that. So now we have the tools and the capabilities. It's about how we put it in front of our clients and how we use it every day to make that experience work. And so it's frictionless and it's proactive and it's delightful. It's no longer about someone ringing us and us taking the call. It's about us ringing them or interacting with them and being proactive and delightful in the way we can manage that experience. And from a Citi perspective, it doesn't matter if you're a relationship manager talking to the client, working in technology, building the solutions, or working in our risk teams, thinking about our controls frameworks. All people in the village, everybody working on these solutions is aligned to the same strategy, the same journey, which is how do we become client obsessed? How do we basically make this as easy as we can for our clients as we bring this to life? And this is really evidenced in Hong Kong, in everything that the teams do at a consumer and an institutional level. It's led from the top. Our country CEOs in Hong Kong lead this day in, day out. And it's all about action. You know, we've resolved at an Asia level nearly about 20,000 points of friction in the last 2 years, taken them out of the network, which has seen a huge shift in our customer experience metrics. You know, we've doubled our digital net promoter score over the last 18 months. We've increased our net promoter score in wealth and reduced our complaints by about 50%. So this is actually having a big impact on our clients. And then if I go to slide 8, you'll have seen recently that we made, you know, the announcement that we've now created a dedicated wealth unit within Citi, and we've made some decisions around exiting some markets across Asia, all really driven so that we can double down and maximize the impact we want to have in 4 markets across Asia and EMEA. That's Hong Kong, Singapore, the UAE, and the UK. And so Hong Kong becomes a critical market to us. We're here to win. And winning in Hong Kong really, as I said before, putting this new wealth unit together is all about making sure that we have the best of what we currently offer from a consumer perspective, which is that mass emerging affluent up to the Citi private client. And then it's bringing in parts of what we do at an institutional bank around private bank and bringing some of that together to create the best offering in that pyramid I showed before. And then it's also about partnering with the organizations that we bank and really thinking about partnering with those organizations to bring to life how we can use partnerships and engage with our clients that work for these partners in a very different way than we have before. All driven around this notion of client centricity, technology driving both the channel digitization as well as the digitization front to back, making sure that everything we do, we learn and optimize as we go. And then finally, it's about building solutions that we can build once and then reuse. And it's that ability to be able to move faster and scale and accelerate that scale that is going to make the difference for us in the wealth space. So as we are now looking at this and we're starting to roll these solutions out in Hong Kong, the next 12 months really now is about landing the digi-assisted capabilities that we talked about and bringing a solution together that really manages our clients in the Citi Plus bucket all the way up to that ultra high net worth bucket, and doing it as a power of one franchise and taking the learnings not only of what we see in Hong Kong, but the learnings of what we see around the world and bringing them to Hong Kong as well. So with that, I'm going to pass over to Vishal.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Simon. I think that's very interesting. Just a comment before Vishal continues. I heard a private banker in Hong Kong telling me, it's interesting to know all you have talked about. A private banker in Hong Kong told me some time ago that it's interesting to see still quite a number of private banks in Hong Kong where their customers, well, if they want to buy shares, for example, they have to ring the relationship manager and say, okay, I want to buy this. And then the relationship manager will pass the order to the market, and then there will be confirmation, so on and so forth. The reason why this is not automated, not digitized, is because the RM wants to keep the relationship. The RM wants to have a feeling that I'm in control of the relationship. And even worse, within the bank, if the customer goes to the web or goes to the mobile to buy shares, the relationship manager will not get the credit. Whereas if the order goes to the relationship manager, he or she will get the credit. So there are simple things like this that have to be changed. But I think you have, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, look, exactly. The mindset that we take is, and again, you have to change culture to drive this mindset, is one that if it works for the client, and clients are different. Not all clients are the same. There are some clients that still want to make a phone call to buy shares. But the clients that want to be able to buy shares quickly, easily, as I said before, don't even have to come to the Citi app to do that anymore. They can do that through partners like AA Stocks. And so that doesn't mean that the actual role of the relationship manager is diminished in any way, because the relationship manager will know that that client bought stocks that morning or that afternoon. And so it's being able to enable the client to do the things that they want and need to do themselves quickly, easily, as real time as we can. And then enabling the relationship managers to add value in helping that client make their money go further.
Yeah, I think that's very important. Well, anyway, in the interest of time, let's go on, move on to Vishal. It's your turn now.
Thank you, Casey. And look, in the next 15 minutes, what I will try to cover is how technology, the structural change, and the consumer behavior is changing the way the corporate banking operates, and how, in particular, the corporate and consumer banking are converging together, because I think these are very exciting times. Let me start by saying, if you look at the global economic growth, over the last 4 or 5 years, and if you exclude the COVID impact, the global economy has been growing somewhere between 3.5% to 4.5%, right? Give and take a little bit here and there. In this environment, there are pockets, or there are industries or segments that are growing exponentially faster than the overall average, right? If you look at it, I think Piyush referred to it in his discussion. If you look at the cloud market has grown over 18% over the last few years. In fact, the last year it grew almost 24%. And it's quite likely it'll continue to grow at that pace or even faster. If you look at the biometric payments, now these things became popular only once Touch ID became popular around 2015. And we are already talking of 2 trillion of payments being used using biometric payments. This number could go up to 15 trillion. The industrial Internet of Things, obviously as 5G comes in, this is another very exciting space, which today constitutes about 1 trillion in size, but could go almost up to 14 to 15 trillion in the next 15 to 20 years. The API space, very, very rapidly growing, because what people are figuring out is it's how you integrate various systems to form a great experience is going to be more critical than developing everything standalone. That's growing. If you look at all of this, this is far, far greater than the overall global economy. And this has resulted in one big change that is very, very noticeable in the recent times. The pace of growth of new business ideas has considerably accelerated. What do I mean by that? If you go into the history, to reach about 100 million customers, telephone took 75 years. Mobile came in, it took about 16 years. WhatsApp did it in 3 years. Alibaba's online money market fund, I guess, did it in less than a year. And more recently, Jio, a mobile company in India, was able to achieve 100 million customers in less than 6 months. Now that is incredible when we compare to the history of how businesses have grown. And the reason that is possible today is because business is not about creating everything from start to end on its own, but it's all about aggregating and putting things together into a valuable client experience. And that is how the businesses are likely to grow. And in my mind, that is how going forward banking will grow, which is what I call the now economy. And now economy is an economy that's growing extremely fast, new ideas go from startup to scale very quickly, but a lot of them are aggregation of various ecosystems put together in a very smart manner to create a great client experience. If I could move on to the next slide, slide 11, please. Let me spend a little bit of a time on e-commerce, which is really fascinating for all of us. I don't need to sell e-commerce. I think you all know, you've all seen what's happening in the market. But what is driving this e-commerce growth? One obviously is the client experience. Once customer use it, they find it very, very convenient. That's one part of it. But more importantly, the infrastructure development that's happened, particularly in markets in Asia where credit cards were not so common, the whole infrastructure of faster payments, the wallets have created this opportunity for us. As Piyush mentioned, COVID has been a game changer. Historically, people in the 60s and 70s were not a major user of e-commerce. But what we've seen is across the industries, they have switched and they are very actively engaged in this whole activity going forward. So the entire market has grown. Having said that, while we talk about e-commerce, it's still about 17-18% of the overall retail. So there's got a huge, huge scope to grow. I think a lot of us feel that this would be the dominant way how retailing happens globally. And that's what is going to change the way our corporates operate, because that hugely impacts the entire corporate model of operations if the end of the chain is going to operate very, very differently from the way the conventional model was set up. If you could move on to slide number 12, please. On this slide, I have just tried to cover what's happening in Hong Kong, and I think all of you are very familiar, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But I want to share a little bit on the right-hand side, which is the payment trends. If you see, you've got all sorts of instruments. E-wallet has been very popular, octopus cards in Hong Kong, credit cards. The FPS is beginning to make a dent into the market. If you look at the e-commerce, there are two ways e-commerce is going to grow. One is by adding new set of customers who are not already using online. And the second is by making sure that the customer who are converts are using more of their shopping online. The payment systems growth is really helping widen the base. If you look at it, I was talking to some of the e-commerce players. One of the biggest agenda in the market right now is how do we get people who are not comfortable using their credit cards to get into the e-commerce space. The wallets, the faster payment systems that the Hong Kong government has launched are very, very effective in giving alternatives. I'll give you an example. There are many elderly people who work with their children to set up a prefixed wallet amount, and then they know that this is the amount they can use, and they use that for shopping. Now, these are very simple tools, but they are effectively increasing the level of engagement of our clients. And as a corporate bank, it is absolutely important for the bank to be able to offer and solutions that can help the corporate clients collect all possible forms of payments and collection. So that's one space that I'll talk a little bit about, but I just wanted to share with you a little bit of what's happening in the Hong Kong market. If you go to the next slide, slide number 13, the entire e-commerce space is really disruptive for our corporates, right? They had a very well-established sound model where they had a distribution chain which had been established for years and years, and they knew how to manage it. And now suddenly that distribution chain that is growing the fastest is the one that they know the least about. It is forcing them to be far more nimble, launching products much faster. And they are able to do that because they have now data and feedback loop from what is selling in the market, reaching them at a much faster pace than what it was earlier. They have new business strategies. The whole concept of shelf life, the shelf space has changed, right? How do corporates get attention for their products in a marketplace is very different from what it was in a physical retail. The buy now, pay later are new concepts that are coming in that is helping corporates promote their products in partnership with fintechs. Now, these are all relatively new ideas, but they are gaining acceptance at a very, very rapid pace. The last mile logistics, how do you make sure that you deliver your products and manage refunds in a manner that your clients feel satisfied is complex, but very, very critical. Monetizing data. Now, this is creating a whole new stream of data for our clients. If they use it appropriately, they can really refine their business models. And of course, they need all possible channels of payments and collections that their clients are willing to offer so that they don't miss a client because of the alternatives on payments. In addition, they need information. Payment alone is not enough, right? You may get a money into your account, but if you don't know and you can't relate it to what the client's transaction is, it frankly is not going to help you facilitate your sales. So these are the things. And we at Citi are extremely focused in working with our clients in each aspects of this. Again, as I mentioned, it's all about partnerships. It's all about identifying the pain points and how we as the banker to the client is able to facilitate them in this process to make sure that their transition from the offline model to online is much more streamlined and adds value to their business. So this is a complete game changer compared to how the classical institutional banking was, which was all about what is your working capital gap and how can I help your distributors and suppliers. Now, a lot of it is how can I integrate you with your end consumers and provide you information that helps you drive your business faster. If you can go to the next slide, please. The way we run the business now is we've basically divided our client base into what we call digital natives and traditional companies. I think when we talk to them, almost all of them have the same objective. How do they grow their sales? How do they get more embedded with it? But the approach is a little different. The digital natives are already there in terms of their infrastructure, and our ability to engage and connect with them is far more rapid in terms of the scale to get them going. The traditional companies are at a different stages of moving on this path, but we are working with them to get them to eliminate paper, to eliminate the entire manual processes. How do we digitize? Because getting your e-commerce will only be effective if your entire systems at the back are also digitized and provide you the same level of speed and information. So there are different sets of challenges and pain points that they have, and we continue to work with them in this journey as they transition. This to me is one of the most exciting times where our clients are transitioning. And it provides us a lot of opportunity to work with them and differentiate ourselves in this journey with them. If you go to slide number 15, now here is a slide which basically explains and shows the kind of engagement that we are doing with our clients, right? As they move towards a more direct sales model. We need to make sure we have connectivity for them to collect all possible forms of payments. That's not enough. We need to make sure we can apply the cash and we can provide them the information at a speed that is helpful for them. simplify the user experience and speed happens through APIs. So connecting their business model with our systems to providing them information which flows seamlessly across is going to be critical. If you're a client operating in multiple countries, offering your clients local pricing in multiple markets, and at the same time collating the entire process, that's got some interesting challenges, but that's something that we are able to offer to our clients. Giving them insights into how their entire business model is working in terms of flows at various points in time helps them understand how they can improve the process. And if you see working capital, which was used to be the prime source of short-term operations of the banking, is way below, but it's still important. Now, if you ask me, most of the banks will have the technology of doing this. But what is important is not the technology alone, how you use the technology to create a solution for the client. And that's where we really pride ourselves with our team of people who are able to sit down and understand the flows across the client and put together the solutions that they need. As I call it, it's not just the tool set. The tool set is there, but how do you create solutions out of the tool sets is going to be what will differentiate the banks which succeed versus others. So that's all from my side. Casey, over to you.
Thank you, Vishal, for this very interesting presentation. I note with interest the now economy, the speed at which it grows and so on. If only banking could grow at half of those rates, then the valuation of bank shares should be a different thing. Well, but it's up to all the people in the financial services industry to make this happen. We have covered a lot of ground, but unfortunately we have overrun a little bit. But I see a question from the audience, which I think perhaps could be dealt with by either of you or both of you. It relates to open banking and open API, and whether this is going to bring any substantial changes in bank strategies going forward. And a related issue is, I think, how to manage trust, cooperation, and partnership amongst stakeholders in an ecosystem. Simon or Vishal, any thoughts?
I think this is the angle of, let me take the second, and the angle of trust and partnership is not new to banking, right? The difference now is that you are working with not only your client, but the entire ecosystem. So understanding the entire ecosystem is important, and understanding the flows and the partnership and commercial terms on the way they operate is absolutely, absolutely critical. More importantly, it's critical to understand the criticality of the elements of the ecosystem. Now, banks which spend time doing that will get it right, because if you just treat each element of the ecosystem as just one more element that you are trying to capture, that is not good enough. You have to understand, because certain elements are going to be always more critical than the others. And you need to make sure that that weighs into the way you structure your solutions out over there. So I think if it requires the banks and the banking teams to get a better understanding of the entire ecosystem, I think that's one area that we all need to work on. Coming to the APIs, look, I think this is the future, right? At the end of the day, I can tell you, if there are many banks which have fantastic in-house products, but if they cannot connect with the end clients in the way the world is going to operate going forward, it's not going to benefit a wider set of clients, right? It's going to get very limited. So I think there's going to be a lot more work in this space across the banks. There's going to be connectivity not only across clients and the banks, but it also creates opportunities for banks to work together. And we are seeing that because, as in Hong Kong, we see new internet banks coming. There are parts of that banking that we can provide them as a service, which they can then leverage for their clients much better than trying to create right from the scratch. So yes, there are opportunities for partnerships across the board.
Yeah, look, I agree. I think there are a couple of other elements I will bring in. I think organisations are very mindful around the customer and the customer's data and how customers want their data to be used. And I think, I go back to that example I used earlier about buying and selling stock. That this simplicity of being able to go into stocks, and as a Citi customer now, one click, and you're now in the Citi infrastructure in the buy sell. Flow, and you can do that very simply. No longer do you have to log out of one and log into the other. That API enables that straight through transition. And again, when we think about these partnerships we're developing, we've got more than 800 APIs now that we've enabled internally that we can use externally and surface client information where the client is. And I think that's critically important, that clients want this information where they are. But I think also it's where partnerships make sense to a client and they get value out of it. And so for us, it's really about how do we create value for our clients through the use of open banking and APIs, and work with our clients, whether that's an individual or an institution, to think about how they want to use data to further leverage and enable them. And so I think that's the key is the use of data in a responsible way, and really thinking about driving value through that ecosystem at either and both ends.
Thank you, Simon and Vishal. We could continue this discussion, but time is up. Well, before closing, I just want to say that I heard a comment from a bank CEO that in this day and age, banks should no longer benchmark their performance against the best bank in the world. They should instead benchmark their performance against selected big techs. But your presentations and discussions this morning have persuaded me that perhaps banks could still benchmark themselves with another bank after all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.